This is the Barely Published Authors event. If you were looking for the Nobel Prize in Literature event, not yet. So the programming notes there are distributed here and there. We have a crack team of volunteers who are working out front. And we will have 8 authors. Each author will have 8 minutes. At the end of that 8 minutes, they will be fired upon with pepper spray. It's not actually true. And then we'll have a luxurious intermission in the gap between fours. My name is Ransom Stevens, and I would like to thank, for Litquake, Martin Rapolsky for having us here once again at the wonderful, beautiful Makeout room. Now, should you need something, anything at all, information about the festival, investment advice, help with awkward sentences, runaway similes, mixed metaphors, analyses of survey data, Arctic Sea title information, feel free to talk to our volunteers, Megan Thornton, Peter McLeod, and Meta Risa. This event is free, except for the 6-drink minimum. But if you happen to have any money and you like Litquake, we're willing to accept that. We are. So we will, in fact, be collecting some donations, and I guarantee that once my bar tab is covered, it'll all make it back to Litquake. All right? So the way this works is, I go around to some of the literary icons in San Francisco, and I ask them to nominate 2 people. This year, and in fact every year, I ask Tamim Ansari, the director and leader of the San Francisco Writers Workshop, which has been meeting now for 63, 64 years or something. Tamim hasn't been doing it the whole time, though. It just seems like it to him. And this year I asked Stephen Elliott of the Rumpus to nominate 2 people, and he did. Unfortunately, one of them had to cancel. And Gravity Goldberg from Instant City nominated 2 people. She's the editor of the Instant City magazine. We also have 2 authors who came in over the transom through the Litquake website submissions. Now, what I mean by a barely published author, which is potentially an offensive thing to call someone who writes a lot and gets published a lot, what happened is that I was in a committee meeting the first year that I produced this event, and I said, well, let's just call it barely published, and they loved that. Then later I realized that it was kind of annoying, offensive, and they wouldn't let me change it because the press likes it too. So we're stuck with it. Now, what I mean by a barely published author is this. A barely published author is someone who is on the welcome mat of their career. They're working on, but have not yet published, a full-length creative narrative. They are likely to, in most cases, they're quite likely to have their first books picked up by a publisher in the next several months. In fact, about 1/3 of the authors who have read here have gone on to get book deals within 2 years. So it really is. This is the up-and-coming event. And finally, writers are a compulsive and rebellious, if not obsessive lot. So if if any of them get out of control, you do what you need to do to protect yourself. All right? And on that note, our first author tonight is Mimi Locke. Gravity Goldberg from Instant City nominated Mimi. And I want to say this because this was just out last week. Barely published authors gets more than its fair share of publicity in the local press. And SF Weekly said that Barely Published is their favorite because of Mimi Locke. Because Mimi digs around in her subjects to get at the intricate causes and effects of human relationships. It's filigree work. This is what you come to Litquake for. 8 Mimi Locks reading filigree work in a cozy bar. I don't actually know what filigree work is. But I love a cozy bar. Mimi is the executive director of the McSweeney's Voice of Witness Oral History Human Rights book series. She won the Ilvisica Award for fiction and was runner-up in the Journal of Arts and Letters Prize for nonfiction. Mimi Locke is an exceptional writer. Her work shows rare depth, humor, and wisdom. That's what literature is for. Her explorations of the human condition are at once uncompromising and full of compassion. Tonight, she will read from the beginning of her novella, Granny Ito. So, the way this came about, Mimi saw a news article about an elderly Japanese woman caught living in a man's closet and was struck by the story's strangeness and sadness. So she kind of got obsessed with the story, but when she went to do some research, she couldn't find more than 30 words describing what happened. So, as writers are wont to do, she filled them in. So, it's about wondering what it's like to be a homeless old woman in Japan, the culture of homeless communities, and how someone gets away with living undetected in a stranger's home. Mimi Locke.